Hello, guys and gals, and this is part 13 of our reading of Leaves of Gold, and we're going to go over what Leaves of Gold actually is. Leaves of Gold is an anthology of prayers, memorable phrases, inspirational verse, and prose from the best authors of the world, both ancient and modern, edited by Clyde Francis Lytle. Now we're going to go over the copyright information. This is the revised edition, 12th printing, 1964, copyright 1938 by Evan S. Coslett. Revised 1948 by Donald G. Remley. Copyright 1948 by AC&D G. Remley. This is published by the Coslett Publishing Company out of Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and is printed in the United States of America. Now, we are going to read a section on finding fault. Chapter 13. Futile. A wicked man who reproaches a virtuous one is like one who looks up and spits at heaven. The spittle soils not the heaven, but comes back and defiles his own face. That is by Sakya Muni. A mirror, search thy own heart. What paineth thee in others in thyself may be. Wait a minute. Let me reread that. It's kind of interestingly worded. A mirror, search thy own heart. What paineth thee in others in thyself may be. I get it now. By Whittier. Do you want to know the man against whom you have most reason to guard yourself? Your looking glass will give a very fair likeness of his face. That is by Wadley. The easiest way. Napoleon said that the man who never makes a mistake never makes war. Those who content themselves with pointing out the mistakes and blunders of those who are in the struggle are making themselves the greatest of all blunders. Nothing is easier than fault-finding. No talent, no self-denial, no brains, no character are required to set up in the grumbling business. That is by Robert West. Consider it. There is a good thought in the following incident from a late book. A dear old friend of mine used to say, with the truest Christian charity, when he heard anyone being loudly condemned for some fault, well, yes, it seems very bad to me, because that's not my way of sinning. That is by Williams. Even in paradise, some would find fault with the morning red, if they ever got up early enough. The fault finder will find faults even in paradise. That is by Thoreau. Patience. Endeavor to be always patient of the faults and imperfections of others, for thou hast many faults and imperfections of thy own, that require a reciprocation of forbearance. If thou art not able to make thyself that which thou wishest to be, how canst thou expect to mold another in conformity to thy will? That is by Thomas A. Kempis. Confession. We confess our little faults only to persuade others that we have no great ones. That is by La Roquefoucauld. The anvil outlasts the hammer. That is true. Now, we have a section here called True Religion. I remember that in the time of childhood, I was very religious. I rose in the night, was punctual in the performance of my devotions, and abstinent. One night, I had been sitting in the presence of my father, not having closed my eyes during the whole time, and with the Holy Koran in my embrace, whilst numbers around us were asleep. I said to my father, not one of these lifteth up his head to perform his genuflections, but they are all so fast asleep, you would say they are dead. He replied, life of your father, it were better if thou also wert asleep, than to be searching out the faults of mankind. The boaster sees nothing but himself, having a veil of conceit before his eyes. If he were endowed with an eye capable of discerning God, he would not discern any person weaker than himself. That is by Sadi from the Gulistan. Next we have rid the world of a rascal. Make yourself an honest man, and then you may be sure that there is one rascal less in the world. That is by Carlyle. Dead leaves. You will find it less easy to uproot faults than to choke them by gaining virtues. Do not think of your faults, still less of others' faults. In every person who comes near, you look for what is good and strong. Honor that, rejoice in it, and you can try to imitate it, and your faults will drop off like dead leaves when their time comes. That's by Ruskin. Never mind. Some people think so many things that are not so. Never mind their taunts and slings. You and I, dear, know. That is by Ruth Mason Rice. Blameless. Let him who would move and convince others be first moved and convinced himself. That is by T.L. Collier. If you would lift me, you must be on higher ground. That is by Emerson. I can easily teach 20 what were good. I can easily teach 20 what were good to be done, than to be one of the 20 to follow my own teachings. That's by Shakespeare. It is easier to be wise for others than for ourselves. That's by La Roquefort. Criticism. Of course, there are some folks who do not seem to be able to cooperate. Their long suit is criticism. Destructive and not constructive criticism. At that. To such I would quote the words of Edmund Burke. Applaud us when we run, counsel us when we fall, cheer us when we recover, but for God's sake, let us pass on. Revenge. A little girl was making faces at a bulldog. Her mother reprimanded her. Well, he started it, said the girl. No doubt the girl was right, for it is no trouble for a bulldog to look ugly. The weakness was in the girl's conclusion, drawn from the dog's face. The dog was probably innocent, but if not, the girl gained nothing by competing with him in making faces. The person who proceeds on the theory that he must return every ugly face he sees, or every ugly act which is directed towards him, will have a never-ending and profitless job. Hate has injurious effects on the person who resents so that he is the chief sufferer. That's by Telescope. Critics. How humiliating it is to find that I am pained when I learn that N or M does not like my preaching, yet am so calmed when all the alphabet from years rejected my master's message. That is by J.W. Alexander. Strike an average. I have been long disposed to judge men by their average. If it is reasonably high, I am charitable with faults and look pretty. Faults that look pretty black. That is by Ed Howell. Now we have gossip. There is so much good in the world for. Let me try that again. Gossip. There is so much good in the worst of us, and so much bad in the best of us, that it ill becomes any of us to find fault with the rest of us. Okay, now we have one here called slander. Life would be a perpetual flea hunt if a man were obliged to run down all the innuendos, inveracies, insinuations and misrepresentations which are uttered against him. That is by Henry Ward Beecher. Now we have temptation is like a winter torrent, a winter torrent, difficult to cross. Some then, being more skillful swimmers, pass over, not being whelmed beneath temptations, nor swept down by them at all, while others who are not such, entering into them, sink in them. Also, for example, Judas entered into the temptation of covetousness, swam not through it, but sinking beneath it, was choked both in body and spirit. Peter entered into the temptation of the denial, but having entered it, he was not overwhelmed by it, but manfully swimming through it, he was delivered. That's by Cyril. 3 gates. If I am tempted to reveal a tale someone to me is told about another, let it pass. Before I speak, 3 gates of gold. 3 narrow gates. First, is it true? Then, is it needful? In my mind, give truthful answer, and the next is last and narrowest. Is it kind? And if to reach my lips at last it passes through these gateways 3, then I may tell the tale tell the tale nor fear what the result of speech may be. That is by Beth Day. A fundamental law. We are too hasty to believe every evil report. Many an innocent person has been injured by a tale that was without foundation. It is a serious matter to do an injustice to a fellow man by a report that we spread. The first thing and least thing that one can do before he passes on a story that's come to him is to stop long enough to ask if it is true. One of the 10 fundamental laws of character is, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. The responsibility of tolerance lies with those who have the wider vision. That is by George Eliot. Busybodies, most of us, are fearless critics of other men's conduct and meticulous denouncers of other men's sins. To mind other people's business is a common pastime of our day. There are very few of us who are not deeply concerned over the reform of somebody else. Now there is no more lovely experience than to feel the personal interest of a friend in you and your affairs, but there is no more irritating experience than to be aware of unfriendly meddling and prying into your private affairs. The man who cannot respect personality is hardly qualified to be listened to on any subject. I find the doing of the will of God leaves me no time for disputing about his plans. That's by MacDonald. Deserving. To be suspicious is to invite treachery, and that's by Voltaire. Tolerant sympathy. There are 2 kinds of tolerance. The one comes from indifference. It is a supercilious thing. No matter what you believe, it seems to say you will have to take the consequences. That does not affect me because I have the right creed. The other kind of tolerance comes through sympathy. You and I do not profess the same doctrines, it says, but we seek the same end, the glory of God and the good of our fellow men. Our point of view, our circumstances, our educations have been different. The road is not easy. Let us help one another. And we have recognizing greatness. There is an old maxim to the effect that only good should be spoken of the dead. It is a noble half-truth and ought to be considered by those who are inclined to injure the good names of people whose voices are stilled in death. But why should generous praise wait for death? Why can we not introduce the element of eternity into our judgment of living men so that greatness may be recognized and encouraged before it takes its difficult journey into the valley of the shadow? Now we have absurdity. What an absurd thing it is to pass over all the valuable parts of a man and fix our attention on his infirmities. That is by Addison. Self-discovery. Within my earthly temple there is a crowd. There is one of us that's humble, one that's proud. There's one that's broken-hearted for his sins, and one unrepentant who's unrepentant sits and grins. There's one who loves his neighbor and himself, and one who cares for naught but fame and pelf. From such corroding care I would be free, if only I could determine which is me. Now we have vagary. Worldly fame is but a breath of wind that blows now this way and now that, and changes name as it changes direction. That's by Dante. Now we have how immense appear to us the sins that we have not committed. That is by Madame Necker. Fertilizing. It is not so much being exempt from faults as having overcome them. That is an advantage to us. It is being with the follies of the mind as with the weeds of the field, which, if destroyed and consumed upon the place of their birth, enrich and improve it more than if none had sprung there before. That is by Pope. Now, friend, I joked about every prominent man in my lifetime, but I never met one I didn't like. That was by Will Rogers. Diary of a Legislative Body. Monday, soak the rich. Tuesday, begin hearing from the rich. Tuesday afternoon, decide to give the rich a chance to get richer. Wednesday, tax Wall Street, struck sales. Sorry. Wednesday, tax Wall Street sales. Thursday, get word from Wall Street. Lay off us or you will get no campaign contributions. Thursday afternoon, decide. We are wrong about Wall Street. Friday, soak the little fellow. Saturday morning, find out there is no little fellow. He has been soaked until he is drowned. Sunday, meditate. Next week, same procedure, only more talk and less results. That is by Will Rogers. Everyone is eagle-eyed to see another's fault and deformity. That is by Dryden. He censures God who quarrels with the imperfections of men. And that's by Burke. And that is going to do it for this particular reading. We have been reading about finding fault. Yep, fault finding. Anyways, we've been reading from Leaves of Gold, and the chapter we've been reading is on fault finding, which is a little bit too easy, if I'm being completely honest. Anyways, if you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe, ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, if you want to support me in any way, or if you want to join the Discord server, all the information will be in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.